Seriously, it is. It's a real sign of the inevitable decline of America when morons like that are going viral for the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't watch it on purpose. When it comes up, I actively mute that kind of content so it doesn't come across my timeline. Even if it's accidentally clicked on by me and I mess up the algorithm, I'll just mute it so I never see it.
You know what I want to know though? What I want to understand, or really a question that I'd pose to you. Who's worse? Them? Because they're bad. What are they called? The Costco boys or something, Jordan? Yeah. Them or the people that watch that content and enjoy it.
Definitely the people that watch it.
I think so
100%.
too. Because they're the ones contributing to the fall of Western civilization.
Yeah.
Right?
I have no pushback on this. It's
Like
definitely
if
them.
no one watched that, not many years ago, someone would watch that and go, "What is this?"
That's what I do.
Now they watch it and they go, "Oh, this is so good." It's horrible, dude. It's horrible.
Yeah, think of
Anyway,
all the productive things you could do with your life instead of watching that nonsense.
I know. That's the reason I was late. I was watching Costco boys.
Even if it's just firing more DFS lineups or playing more slates.
Anyway, good morning, everybody. Happy to have you guys with us as we close out week 5. The tardiness is on me. I was trying to finish a video for the Odd Shopper channel for Monday Night Football, and I hit a snag. But we're here. We're here. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. It was a really exciting day of football yesterday, man. Ton of wild finishes. I couldn't make it through the Sunday night game. I fell asleep.
Me too.
But the early window, even the London game, the late window, there was just full games, just full of excitement. So it was a good day.
Yeah, it was awesome. How'd you do? You have a good day?
No, terrible day. I think we gave a lot of good advice on the show, but it was mixed in with some bad, at least me personally. It was really heavy on Chuba Hubbard, but you parallel that with being really heavy on Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, those players. Sometimes you can have a lot of good takes and then you just don't put it all together. You know what I mean? So it was a slate like that.
I hear you.
And then things are so top heavy. What is min cash worth these days? I mean, you might as well just take all of my entry fees at that point.
Yeah. Well, hey, you got next week.
We got tonight.
We got tonight. You're right. We got tonight. All right, let's do it.
How was your Sunday? Sorry, I didn't return the question.
Oh, you're good, man.
Excuse
good.
me.
It was fine. It was good. It was good. I had some real shots to contend. By the way, before anyone said Courtland Sutton, I really liked him yesterday. What a disaster. If I had told you that the Broncos were going to score 34 points, Matt, and Courtland Sutton would be the one guy to not do anything, you'd have called me crazy. Like that game went exactly as I wanted it to go. Exactly. I think I only had 10% of him, so it's probably only 2x the field. It didn't make a difference, but I bet him too, and I laddered him. But no, I manually boosted in a big way Joe Burrow and Higgins and Jamar. So I just got super heavy overweight on that stack, and that helped me out. So yeah, the first down, I think it was only 7,500 the first. Finished 6th in that. Would have, dude, if Whittington didn't get hurt on that last drive, all I needed was a couple one reception for a few yards. Touchdown would have been big, and had a decent showing in the power sweep. So nothing crazy, but like you said, when you can have decent weeks, it kind of just fuels you to the next week. You're just hoping for the one big week of the season. That's all it is. Just one big week.
Yeah, we talked about it a little last week. It can be frustrating when you have a top 1%, 0.5% finish, and you don't actually win the contest, because then that's where all the money is. If you don't win that, you're going to be bleeding a lot of your bankroll. So that's what we're hoping for. Still, got to keep a level head. Got to look at where you're finishing, process over results. You keep putting yourself in those situations, you're eventually going to win one. So it's always that long-term approach in mind. And when you do get those min cashes, I'm joking about min cashes, those are the things that keep you afloat week to week. So they are important. Definitely don't ignore your min caches. Make
No,
your swaps, everything you need to.
I've really loved messing with the Sims recently though, and I used the new feature where you can have the like how many uniques per each lineup. I
Yeah.
used that and it spread my exposure around, and it helps. Like, man, just being able to provide some boosts in there and get like, okay, so you're only getting 5% Burrow, but like I think I want more in this game. These two teams have played each other, super high scoring affairs. Let me do that. Being able to make those adjustments and boost lineups that are already positively simmed goes such a long way when you end up being right. When you end up being wrong, you're like, shit, I should have just gone with factory settings. You know what I mean? But when that happens to me in the showdown slates all the time, I might need to just set it and forget it. But when you can make those little manual adjustments and you end up being right, and it's already building good lineups and it just boosts them up the ranks, what a difference that makes instead of doing it on your own.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And I like the unique feature, just helps with diversity and risk management. We have a lot of like really great features that show you the best lineups, but sometimes you can end up overexposed depending on your personal risk tolerance. If you have like 70% of a player and he busts for whatever reason, those lineups are dead, even if they are positively leveraged. And sometimes this occurs because of an injury or something. So those uniques do help spread you a little bit. And I always say this when we talk about the Sims tool, whether you're making boost, projection adjustments, they're still giving you the best lineups, even with the tweaks. So when you use the unique feature, all you're doing is spreading your exposure around and you're still getting awesome lineups. So you can't really go wrong with that feature.
Exactly. By the way, last thing I'll say. So I showed this to Ben yesterday. The power sweep lineup I thought that had a chance was Burrow, Chase, and Higgins coming into and what Commanders defense. And then coming into the late slate, I had Tracy, who was good. Kraft had the Whittington, all those guys great. Listen to this. I got a combined 11.8 from Jordan Mason and Deebo Samuel. Combined 11.8.
I had a ton of that 49ers stack, so I feel your pain. That's why my day was so bad. You had just the two. I threw Brock Purdy on top of it.
I had a lot of Brock Purdy. He was my second highest exposed quarterback.
Yeah, those two got me good. Three.
How do you not like that spot for Purdy? You know, look, it's going to happen. I'll go right back to Purdy next week against Seattle too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, sometimes you have the chalk bust, and not all of it busted, just some of it does. That typically happens. And I mean, that's another reason to talk about just your roster exposures in general from a portfolio perspective. And if these things tilt you, like you're way overexposed to the 49ers, and you don't want all your lineups to be dead if they bust, that's when you use something like uniques and you can increase the number of them, and then you won't have as many 49ers. And that is a preference. Like some people love being super risky with their lineups and having that, if the 49ers go off, they're in position with like half their lineups to potentially contend. Other people want to play it a little more risk averse with more stacks and more chances to win without that huge bust factor that could happen. And I can see it both ways. I literally think it's just a preference, but if that tilts you, start trying the uniques. It might help you.
Yeah, it's a great feature. Taylor asks, do you guys play the Millie? I throw like 5-10 in the Millie each week, but I never max it. It's a straight lotto ticket and generally a losing experience for me over time. I really like the single entry mid stake stuff and some of the other MME stuff. But no, Matt, I don't play a lot. I play like 5 to 10 in the Millie each week.
I play a ton of satellites that pay out Millie tickets. So week to week, it really depends. Generally, I'm just whatever tickets I win, you have to play them in the Millie, but it's always different.
Great results in those satellites though.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
You're the one that brought it up.
Well, I'm just being honest. I would rather not speak on it.
Oh, by the way, and then we'll get right to it. We hit 100K yesterday on the show.
I did see that. I actually forgot about the Four Loco. I don't have one.
No, not today. I was saying we do it tonight during Live Before Lock. Can you get one?
Maybe.
I mean, come on. Do you have a funnel in your place?
Why do I need a funnel for it?
Oh, you're just gonna okay. All right. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you were going to funnel it. How would you consume it?
Just shotgun it.
You gonna shotgun it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually more fun.
Yeah, it is.
Plus, you'd probably need someone to pour the funnel for you anyway. All right. What?
Nothing. I'm reading some of the comments about the shotgunning and the Four Locos.
It's got it. We got to do it, man. We hit 100K. Also, the fact that we hit 54 right away, as Ben said, told people that you didn't have to pay to be a subscriber, shocked me. Like, I thought people knew you didn't have to pay to subscribe on YouTube, but apparently there were 54 or 56 people that didn't know.
Well, like, reminder to anyone watching now.
Yes, that's right. You don't need to pay. It's free. And we'll gladly refund your misery if you hate it. Just click unsubscribe, but hit that thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment down below. We love to read and respond to all of those. I know I do. And again, thank you guys for the support. Getting to 100K is awesome, man. Especially with, DFS kind of slowing down in a sense as betting becomes more prevalent. You ready to get into this?
Absolutely.
All right. So let me lay the foundation for you and then get the patented Matt Gajewski breakdowns here. Weird game. Saints are 5.5-point dogs. Chiefs against the spread have really struggled as big favorites. I mean, big time. 43.5-point total. On the Chiefs offensive side of the ball, Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, all on the IR. You can make a very good argument. No, actually, I'll make more than an argument. I'll make a definitive statement, a proclamation that the Chiefs offense is worse now than they were last year. And last year it wasn't great. At least you had Rashee Rice and a healthy Isaiah Pacheco. And now Travis Kelsey clearly seeing him some age-related decline. He's in his 11th season. They don't have much on offense. I mean, they're operating with Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and maybe Carson Steele out of the backfield if he even gets work. The defense has buoyed them through the first 4 weeks of the year. They've played a ton of close games. On the other side, though, the Saints defense, they get Demario Davis back, but they're missing 3 linebackers, which is no good. Their offensive line, though, they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Like, maybe the best center in the league, and McCoy is out. They lost his backup. They might be starting a guy that they just pulled from the practice squad off of the New York Jets, and they have other injuries to the O-line as well. Dealing with Chris Jones and this pass rush from the Chiefs is an issue. So I see sides on both of these teams that could be, that could present some real problems today.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how the Saints are going to pass protect. It was a huge concern coming into the year. You lose like Ramczyk before the season even starts. And now, I mean, almost your entire interior is gone for this team. You mentioned pulling guys off the street. It just sucks when stuff like this happens, especially because the Saints run a weird offense. They're limited. And I like what Kubiak's doing, but they're really predicated on the run. So what do you do now that you have essentially your entire interior gone? And I mean, Ramczyk is supposed to start at a tackle position for you. You're down, like hypothetically, 4 starters that you hoped would come into the year as, the linchpin of your offense if you were to go back to the spring and stuff. But now you have a non-mobile signal caller and Derek Carr behind this unit. You're probably not going to be able to run the ball with the Saints having this weakness and the Chiefs being strong up front. I don't know, man. You also don't have like even Taysom Hill you can use in some weird gadgety stuff. And this kind of hurts the pass game too. They were already running a lot of 12 personnel and 22 personnel if you include like fullback stuff. You're probably going to be in that a ton of the time now just to help out your offensive line. So who's on the field? Is it even usable for DFS? Like, this just could be a catastrophe written all over it.
I'm genuinely looking at Juwan Johnson today as somebody that I think could be super viable. That's where we're at.
He definitely could. He's going to play a ton. He already has been playing a ton. He's not very involved, which makes sense when you're throwing. You're probably just going to prioritize Olave, Kamara, and Shaheed, but no Taysom Hill now. He plays the weirdest role in the NFL, but consistently he's stealing opportunities from people. Juwan's also built like a receiver. He's not a blocking tight end in the slightest. My only concern, I guess, is does he have a snap ceiling when they're in these weird personnel groupings? I think you're more likely to see Foster Moreau and Adam Prentice, the fullback, especially when you're trying to run, when you're pass protecting. With Moreau essentially being a third receiver, does he have a snap ceiling? I don't really think so, but I think he's probably locked into like at least 60 to 70%.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at Juwan Johnson over the first couple of weeks, he ran 12 routes in week 1, 4 in week 2, 13 in week 3, but then 27 last week. Outsnapped Foster Moreau for the first time on the year. Taysom Hill's out. Moreau's routes run have gone down week over week, 13, 10, 9, and then 7 last week. Chiefs have allowed the most receiving yards to tight ends on the season. Isaiah Likely had 100 plus. Gesicki had 91. Even Pitts, your boy, had 59. So I just think it's one of these spots where if we're talking value, you're going to have to pull from these odd places today. And in the past, Juwan Johnson has been a red zone target. It's a weird spot to look at value today and wonder where you're going to go, because the alternatives, and this as good as anyone. Well, you and I have been doing this show, 4 years together now or something like that?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Right? Like 4 years. How many Chiefs slates have we done? A ton. And it always, like so many times, especially in the non-Tyreek Hill years, even no, that's not even true. With Tyreek Hill, you and I'd be talking about Byron Pringle on here. It's assuming Hardman plays, but like Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson. These are the type of guys. Even let's be honest about this. Even Xavier Worthy, like Andy Reid clearly hasn't been willing to just give this guy a full out workload in the passing game yet. It's a mess for Kansas City too. So that's your value down there.
It's basically like a throwback to Chiefs of last year, a couple of years ago, where they're fun to play in DFS because you're kind of like doing DFS roulette with who you think is going to have the big plays for this offense. Patrick Mahomes is still there, and we know he has a ceiling, even though he hasn't really showed it much this year. But you bring up an interesting point. Do you really want to play one of the Chiefs in a dice roll situation, or would you rather just play someone you know is on the field with a certainty in like a Juwan Johnson, or I don't know, Mason Tipton plays a lot for this team. He's the stone minimum. You could use him. Even Moreau still had a pretty good snap share last week. They just asked him to block a ton. And to me, it's kind of like an indictment on the offensive line, even though he's out there. Is it usable for DFS? I don't really think it's that usable, but ultimately, I do think Juwan Johnson, going back all the way to him at the beginning, is probably your safest value option. If you're not including like defense and kickers, I'm talking like the 3K range. But I don't know. How confident are you? Or I guess, is there any Chief you would take over him? Do you think he's the best value right now?
Who? Kelsey or Rice?
Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was my fault. I was trying to look something up over here.
In comparison to the Chiefs' dust.
So I think it's worse than last year. At least last year, you knew over the second half of the season, last 2/3 of the season, that Rashee Rice was the guy. This year, the target shares on this team are Rashee Rice, 25%, Kelsey, 18%. Mind you, Kelsey was at 13% coming into last week, Matt, and Rice went down in the first quarter. That's crazy. Pacheco at 16 was above Kelsey coming into last week, but that's on the year. Okay, here we go. Xavier Worthy, 13%. Kareem Hunt, 11%. Noah Gray, 8. Watson, 7. Pirine, 7. Steele, 4. Smith-Schuster, 3.5. Sky Moore, 1.7. What do I do with that? Please tell me. What do I do? What am I expected to do with that outside? Like, if you're someone that's playing a lot of lineups, it's a lot easier to just say, I'm going to spray and pray in a spot like this. But it's not like, oh, okay, well, Mecole Hardman's been here a while, so he'll be the clear guy to step up. No, you could say Sky Moore might be the guy to step up. You could say Justin Watson, who's also been in this offense for an extended period of time, could be the guy to step up. There is no, and you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm always happy to listen. There is no rhyme or reason week over week when you're missing a Rashee Rice, when Hollywood Brown's still on the IR. There is no rhyme or reason for who's going to be the guy. And I don't think you could even definitively put Xavier Worthy that far ahead of everybody else, because while he has the big play potential, 4 targets today wouldn't be shocking to me either. 4 targets for Worthy, 3 targets for Smith-Schuster, 8 targets for Travis Kelsey, 3 for Justin Watson. I don't know. How do you break this down? How do you see this in the hierarchy of pass catchers for Kansas City?
So there are some cheaper ones I think you'll get to just more naturally from a pricing standpoint. Worthy's tough because he's 9K. So you are debating between him and Olave and the QBs and Kamara. So it's kind of a different conversation with him. I'm not going to X him out by any means, and I imagine I'll still have a little bit. Right now, he's one of the most negatively leveraged players in our tools, especially among the expensive options. And I get it. Everything you laid out is spot on. But when you look at upside with these guys, I mean, who really has the chance to ascend in this offense? It's probably not Kelsey. If Kelsey has an awesome day, it's on the back of volume because he's not been the same player efficiency-wise. And everyone else who's a pass catcher in this team is just literal dust. I mean, it's like a practice squad out there, and Mahomes will lift these guys at times, but the 3 wide receiver sets most likely are going to be Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, and Juju Smith-Schuster playing the Rashee Rice role. I know there's all these reports that Juju is going to see an elevated target share because of that, but I mean, this player is terrible. I think I would rank him 3rd behind Justin Watson, who at least does something stretching the field, and Worthy. Plus, Worthy does give you those gadget plays. There will be stuff designed for him that's independent of the broken plays Mahomes creates on his own. So I definitely don't want to fade Worthy just with the upside. But I mean, aside from that, I'll just play a lot of Justin Watson, and then Juju will be 3rd for me.
Yeah. Juju, this is crazy though. He played 52% of snaps last week. He wasn't targeted. Rashee Rice played 4 snaps. 4 snaps for Rashee Rice.
What do we need to see out of Juju to change our minds? I mean, he sucks, man. He's just flat out is terrible.
I guess what I'm saying is, to answer your question, I'm going to be playing some Juju Smith-Schuster. It's just the way it is. I'll probably even end up with trace amounts of Sky Moore. He was targeted twice last week. But Juwan Johnson is probably the best option in that 2K range.
In the 2K range, I think so. It's when you start expanding it a little further that things get interesting, because you can bring Mason Tipton into the conversation if you want. He's technically the 3rd wide receiver for this team. And he's not going to play as much as Juwan Johnson, but he's also cheaper. So it's almost like, yeah, Juwan Johnson's probably in the field more. He's probably a little more involved, but would you rather just go down and play the stone minimum and jam potentially another stud in your lineup? And I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that yet. Honestly, the answer is probably just being a little overweight to both of them at the expense of some of the Chiefs guys who we do not have a clear read on. And then play extra studs, because if Tipton has 2 catches for 20 yards, does it matter if the studs do what they're supposed to? Probably not.
No, I'm with you. One more data point here. Very kind of basic one, but it kind of illustrates everything you and I are talking about. So Kelsey had 9 targets last week. Xavier Worthy 4, Noah Gray 4, Justin Watson 3, Kareem Hunt 3, Carson Steele 3, Sky Moore 2. That's it. That's what you had. You had just top to bottom between 2 and 4, really between 3 and 4 targets for 5 different players and 2 for Sky Moore. And Juju didn't get a single target.
Yeah, Juju stinks. Okay, question for you. What do you think the chances are the Chiefs increase their 12 personnel? I saw Noah Gray get brought up in chat a couple times. I love Noah Gray as a player. I never wish for players to get injured in front of other players, but I would love to see Noah Gray in a full-time role at the expense of Kelsey at this point, just as an experiment. Let me see what Noah Gray's got, because every time he's out there in these limited roles, he looks awesome.
Yes.
The problem is last week, 12 routes, 32 snaps. I mean, it's about a 50% snap share, which is pretty good for a tight end. Do you think that could potentially increase? He's still blocking a lot more than I like, but with Juju and Sky Moore as your options potentially to take on an increased role, maybe they look more to Noah Gray. So I think he kind of has a little bit of an untapped ceiling, especially with how well he's played. He doesn't project that well for the reasons mentioned, but maybe a boost situation.
I couldn't agree more. One of the, first of all, whenever it's a showdown, I think you and I always just the standard Noah Gray mention, right? Always. Because he's the type of guy that could get the sneaky touchdown. They do weird things on goal to go situations all the time, right? And another thing to consider, what viable red zone targets do they have? You get inside the 10, Matt. What viable red zone options do you have outside of Kelsey?
None. I mean, Worthy Reed is so creative. You could definitely draw stuff up
But like
for Worthy.
End zone targets.
Okay, so you were saying a receiver, a pass catcher needs to go out there, beat their man.
Yeah.
No one.
Right.
I feel like Worthy has to be schemed.
Like Worthy can burn them downfield, but I'm saying you get in those goal to go situations with less space. They don't really have options. It could be Noah Gray.
He might be the second best, dude.
He might. You know what? I mean, I'd put him right up there with Juwan Johnson. And last week you said 12 routes. I'm seeing 11, but tomato.
Depends on your source. I mean,
yeah,
someone
tomato,
at the end of the
potato.
day. Let's
go. What's that?
What did you say before that?
I said tomato.
Oh, yeah.
But let's go with 11 for the sake of me being able to say that he was targeted on 36% of the routes he ran last week. He had 4 targets on 11 routes. He was the second leading target getter and second most receptions on the team.
He's surprisingly involved, man. I, again, just wish it would be a little bit more. Plus, to your point, he is involved in the red zone and the end zone. They haven't had a ton of end zone targets this year. Actually, Worthy has 3 somehow. Gray has 1 and Juju has 1. Isn't
end
that
zone
weird?
Or red zone.
What's that?
End zone or red zone?
End zone.
Really? Worthy has 3, huh?
Somehow.
Huh.
Worthy has 3, Gray has 1, Juju has 1. Those are the only end zone targets. Rashee Rice had 0.
Wow.
Yeah, very surprising. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and watch this. I was not prepared for this at this point.
Are you looking at PFF's fantasy stats? Is that what you're on?
I'm on Add More Funds.
Okay. So yeah, I'm on end zone targets on PFF. I see, Worthy with 3, Kelsey with 1, Gray with 1, Smith-Schuster with 1. Huh. But then you look at red zone targets and there's 4 for Worthy. Wow. 3 for Kelsey, 3 for Gray in the red zone.
To your point, he might be their second best option in the red zone right now.
Shit. That's wild. 3 for Rice in the red zone, and he scored on 2 of them. So
yeah, he's a baller. He should have had more than 0 end zone targets.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh yeah. But point being, he's definitely involved there. It's just not in the end zone targets. I kind of like how we're working backwards on this slate.
Yeah, me too. It's different. You kind of have to with the Chiefs.
Yeah, it was unintentional. Right, exactly. So if you and me were to start, or if you and I were to start with just talking the top, it's like, yes, Kelsey's a good play, clearly. Patrick, the thing about Mahomes, though, is he's been so underwhelming. Like, we say all of this about the pass catchers. As good as Patrick Mahomes is at winning games, I'm choosing my words very wisely here. As good as he is at winning games, he has not been a particularly good fantasy quarterback over the last couple of years.
He's probably having his worst season since he initially became the starter. I mean, it hasn't been fantastic over the last 2 seasons. And you can say what you want about this. I will agree with you that his receivers right now are dust, but at the beginning of the year, they were pretty good. And I guess losing Hollywood Brown is not a good thing for him.
Though. It's a good point, what you're making. Yeah, and Isaiah Pacheco, very capable pass catcher as well.
The other thing people will say is that, these defenses play too high against him. I mean, every single defense comes in with a plan to beat the opposing quarterback. If Mahomes can't take advantage of that, that's on Mahomes. It's not like the Chiefs are going into this game being like, it's Derek Carr, don't need a game plan. Like, every defense comes in with a plan against the signal caller. It's up to the signal caller to beat the game plan. That's why you prepare.
Through 4 weeks, I'm not including yesterday because they haven't played. Through 4 weeks, Mahomes was the QB 19 in fantasy points per game behind Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he doesn't run, so you're immediately at a disadvantage. You basically are banking on 300-yard bonuses. Does he have enough volume to do that? They don't have a shootout defense. Deshaun Watson does. So Deshaun Watson also runs. You might think he sucks as a real life quarterback. He is the lowest QBR among any starter in the league, but he has more opportunities than Mahomes, which means something.
Justin Smith just wanted to confirm we'll no longer be speaking on Cortland Sutton. I mentioned it at the top. Matt, they scored 34 points. Knicks had his most efficient game.
Dude, our boy Marvin Mims had a nice return too. I wish they would play him at some point over Devon Bailey and whoever else their dusty guys are throwing out there.
It's crazy. My bad though. I told you guys though, don't do it if you don't want to. I didn't have a lot. I was over the field, but didn't affect me. 34 points. The game went exactly how I wanted it to. Bunch of red zone opportunities. They scored 3 or 4 offensive touchdowns, and they just didn't look to my boy. So to answer your question that we will no longer be speaking on Cortland Sutton, you are correct. Until week 8 when they face the Panthers in Denver. And I'll be right back on it. I will be right back on it, dude. I'm going to buy low like a motherfucker on that for his prop ladder. Yep.
Sometimes you have to. There's me and Ben always talk about the ban list where we put the bad college football teams that are bad to us. But if you do that long enough, you remove the opportunity to buy low on these guys. And we never want to do that.
No, I bought low on Pickens last week and it was huge for me. You know, I bought low on a bunch of these guys. And a lot of times it works. But guess what, Matt? A lot of times it ends spectacularly bad. And you move on to the next week and try and find another guy or another stack. It's just the way it is.
I've been there many times.
Yeah, sometimes you have to. Like, I promise you, Juwan Johnson and Noah Gray can stink tonight. And you and I aren't going to be sitting back afterwards going, man, how are they not good? That's shocking. Although I was a little surprised with 34 points that Cortland Sutton was not good, but anyway, my fault, guys. What are you doing with the backfield? Oh, well, actually, first off, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey. Can you just provide us with a bit of a breakdown here on how you're approaching them today?
As much as I don't like Kelsey, I think his pricing is an error at 8,600.
It is.
If he was up at like 10K, I would have. Yeah, I think you could at least make the argument. All right, he's in decline. Like he's going to need a lot of targets because of his efficiency has been bad. But at 8,600, if he sees just the target share we're expecting, he's probably going to outperform expectations. So, I mean, it's hard not to put him in your lineup, especially with all the concerns with the Saints, the team total the Chiefs have. Even if this game, maybe it doesn't live up to expectations total wise, like Kelsey's so involved, especially without the other options. I mean, just it's hard to get away from him, even if I think he's in decline. Otherwise, Mahomes and Worthy, I think, are a little trickier. Back to the Mahomes thing, without any mobility and now a more condensed target share, I mean, I just don't really see the path for him price adjusted over Kelsey. You remove Rashee Rice, like who is he going to be spreading the ball to? He has spread it a little bit at times, but do we really think he's going to be throwing to like Juju, Sky Moore, like 3 targets apiece, Watson 3 targets at the expense of Kelsey or Worthy? I don't really see that. So I'm going to be higher on Mahomes in the flex specifically. Not much of a captain play in my opinion. And Worthy projects poorly just because his target share has been bad. He sells the gadgety stuff. I'm going to try to come in around the field on Worthy. I don't really want him to be someone that kills me because I faded him, and I definitely don't want to be making a huge stand over the field with a player that could legitimately see 4 targets.
You know, I was going to ask you, do you think if you're playing Worthy that you have to have Patrick Mahomes tethered to him because of that big price point? And if Worthy goes off, you know, that's the one guy that can really elevate Mahomes' ceiling. The other issue though is that they can use Worthy in the run game like they did in week 1. So I don't know, but I feel like there's some type of connection there where, you know, if Mahomes goes off, how does he do that? And I have such a tough time believing it's because of, you know, Juju Smith-Schuster or anything. Like if I'm playing, I don't care about Smith-Schuster or even Noah Gray for that matter. As much as we like him at a discount today, you don't need him with Mahomes. Like Kelsey and Mahomes clearly big correlation there, but maybe I don't know. I guess you could play Worthy without Mahomes pretty easily. But do you want to play Mahomes without Worthy?
I think you could, just because the target share is so bad for Worthy to this point. Honestly, I think Mahomes' easiest path to getting there is if this is just like a routing and the Saints don't put up any points. Because I have more interest in the studs on the Saints outside of Kelsey and Mahomes. But if those guys have a dud and then the Chiefs are kind of propped up by default, that's where I think I'll be playing more Chiefs, is in these sort of like onslaught builds where you have Kelsey, Mahomes, whether it's Worthy or Kareem Hunt, and then, a dusty Chief, and then maybe one Saint on the other side. Because if this remains competitive, there's a lot of Saints and a condensed, like their offense is really condensed. The Chiefs, it's Kelsey, and then it's probably not as condensed. So there are ways you could just have more Saints in optimal lineups because you know where the ball is going if it's competitive. But if the Saints are routed, that's where I have more interest in Kelsey, Mahomes, and some of the Chiefs players.
What are we doing with the backfield now after Carson Steele fumbles, seems to get demoted? Kareem Hunt's super familiar with this offense. Samaje Perine, kind of playing the role of Jerick McKinnon, or at least you would think he would, but he's not. You would think he should be,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like sweet justice that they got their medicine with Carson Steele finally.
Oh, are you not a Carson Steele fan?
No, I just like the Chiefs are constantly tempting fate. They're like, we're so much better at evaluating running backs. And they missed on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but since then they're like, we don't need to pay attention to the position. We can just take stupid UDFAs and turn them into Isaiah Pacheco. So then they go and draft a shitty running back out of UCLA who previously played in the MAC, runs like a 4.8 40, and he's a fullback. And they're like, you know what? He might be the guy. We're going to not sign anybody, just come into the season with complete negligence behind Isaiah Pacheco because we're really good at evaluating the running back. And this fullback might be something. Boom, fumble, have to go get Kareem Hunt, plays way more than Carson Steele. Like, take your medicine, Chiefs. For DFS, I don't see how you take Kareem Hunt off the field with the dust that is behind him at this point, and he might be dust himself. But the gross negligence at the running back position from the Chiefs at this point has backed them into this corner where I don't know who else you would possibly give opportunities to. They clearly don't trust Perine, even in clear pass catching situations. He's not taking all those. Weird. Yeah, he doesn't handle all the third downs or up-tempo situations, 2-minute situations. Hunt is still heavily involved there. Steele's a fullback who can't hang on to the ball with a pet alligator. That's not here nor there.
I'm so tired of hearing about that shit.
I've been hearing about it even longer, paying attention to him on Tuesday nights. Guy sucks.
So it's
Hunt is underpriced, I think, if he has the same workload, and he's the only one that's trustworthy.
I agree. I want to disagree, but you're right. They're going to use. He had 17 looks last game, and he didn't even start. And they just signed him.
What in the world were they doing this offseason?
What, as far as
Kareem Hunt was on the street the whole time. There are players available via trade, like Khalil Herbert's not playing. I know Dameon Pierce is hurt now, but he's in the doghouse. Like, Jerick McKinnon's still a free agent. He's probably an upgrade in everybody who's on the roster right now. If he wants to come back, that's another thing that's a wrinkle. But like, what were you thinking coming into the year with just Pacheco at running back?
I guess they trusted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but he's hurt. Which is wild that they'd trust him, but he was the number 2.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big problem in and of itself. How many opportunities do you need to see from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to know that he's an XFL back?
Yeah. Yeah. Or an ex-NFL back is what he should be. He's not good. And it really feels like Kareem Hunt is, look, maybe we're just wrong, but why would you go? Sometimes, like you and I talk about preseason NFL all the time. I think the reason we love it, you from a DFS perspective, me from a betting perspective, is because we love trying to solve the puzzle, right? Like sometimes when you can get into a coach's head and kind of figure out like what the most reasonable, and not to say that they all make reasonable decisions, because not all of them do, but generally speak, more times than not, they actually do in those scenarios. To me, I can't get away from the reasonable decision here being give a guy in Kareem Hunt who knows the offense literally better than any other running back in the league, give him the majority of work.
He was the third highest graded player on their team last week, according to PFF. So not only did he not lose them possessions like Carson Steele, but he played objectively well in the game against, I mean, the Chargers are pretty banged up on defense, but still, regardless of matchup, you ask a guy to do a job and he does it. What are we going to punish him? I don't see that being likely. Outside of a Kareem Hunt fumble or something early in this game, which honestly, I don't think is going to be as detrimental as, like a Carson Steele fumble, because there's a huge sample of Kareem Hunt being reliable, whereas Steele is just a bozo off the street. I think there's more reliability with him too. Like, I don't really believe you're dealing with a short leash.
I don't think so either. They know him. Why do you think they brought him in, right? They know him.
Because they backed themselves into this stupid corner. The other thing is, like, how many day 3 running backs are out there performing right now that the Chiefs are just like, nope, we don't need to do anything at running back. We're good. Morons.
Yeah, I love the fire you have this season, man. I don't know what's gotten into you, but I love it.
Just like, there's such bad decision making, and it doesn't have to be this bad. Like, take shots at positions. And the Chiefs generally have done a pretty good job drafting, so it's hard to cook them that bad. It's just like this one particular situation's pretty negligent, and you didn't even need to do something in the draft. Ton of free agents still out there.
It's also slightly hard to cook a team that has back-to-back Super Bowl wins,
For sure.
Like, they drafted Isaiah Pacheco in the 6th round, and he ends up just being awesome.
That's what I'm saying. And plus, they win all these Super Bowls because they hit on Mahomes. Like, who else was in that draft class? I don't know. Mitch Trubisky, he was in that class, correct?
Which class? The Mahomes one?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Well, regardless, there was a bad quarterback in there. Say they just accidentally missed on QB and they didn't get Mahomes. Then we can cook them for all these draft picks they busted on. Sky Moore in the 2nd round, dude. Like, there's Kadarius Toney they traded a first for or a second for, I can't remember.
Yeah. It was Mitch Trubisky. Yep. Mitch Trubisky went 2nd. Mahomes went 10th.
I don't think I'm better than Veach. I'm certainly worse, but I'm also not a GM. I'm here talking about the games, and we need to evaluate decisions that these players have made. They should be evaluating themselves.
So Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt's an awesome play. I don't see how you get away from that workload.
I don't either. I think we've exhausted all options on Kansas City unless you've got something else.
Nope.
All right. I actually think the Saints are a little bit easier to break down. And by the way, guys, we'll build the lineup out in the lineup sim. Shout out to all 750 of you guys with us right now. If you ever want to check out any of our tools, I tell them every week, Matt, the link is in the description. There's only one link now. You can go in, see monthly or weekly, whether it's the essentials package, the light package, the core package, max package, any of that stuff is right there to take advantage of. And if you want to, and just you want to dive in, there's no limitations on the tools that you can grab here. And the coolest part is now that, unlike last season, now that we have all of these different options, you don't need to jump all the way to the top, or you don't need to be stuck with only, the lowest package. We have 2 in the middle, the light and the core package, which include the single lineup sim, the post contest simulator, ownership, player projections. All of them include premium Discord. The core package, by far the best value though, because you're also getting the pre-contest sim, the one Matt and I talked about at the top of the show. I've had a great season with that so far. I make some tweaks, change the uniques out like I was talking about, a little ROI boost to this guy or that. Sometimes in showdowns, we'll make a projection change or so, and then let it do all of the work for you and build better lineups. Truly, build better lineups than you're ever going to build by yourself. It's going to improve your process tenfold. It's going to simplify it, and it's going to streamline it. That's what it comes down to for me. I bet you too, because we're on the show on Sunday. I get done around 11:40. We've got an hour and 20 minutes, but I've got other stuff to handle. I run the Sims. My process is now down to like 35, 40 minutes in total after making a couple tweaks. You're building your lineups on the live before lock, going up to lock. I would assume you're using that to just make it easier for you.
Absolutely. And it's kind of nice. I'm on there with Eric. You can kind of get live feedback on your takes. And then the tools are extremely easy to use. So you can apply that feedback right away. And it's nice. I mean, if you build your own lineups before a particular show, you hear something you like, you can tweak something, or even just flatten out your exposure with really easy tools to use. Plus, the ease has allowed me to play more slates. It's not only you're locked into, can only play the main slate. I'm worried about time. If I get my CSV in late on complete dust, like it's much easier to do these things. We have every single showdown, afternoon, early, London games when they're around. Like there's every single possible slate you could play.
Anyway, you guys ever want to check it out, link down there. Like I said, toggle week to month, check out all the subscriptions. You're going to love these tools, man. They're going to change the way you play. And if you have any questions, hit us up. Even if you're not a sub, my DMs are open on Twitter. And if you do sign up, jump into Discord, say what's up, join the community. Any questions you have there, we got you covered. All right. So on the Saints side of the football, how much of a priority is Alvin Kamara today, given the workload he's seen through the first 4 weeks?
Yeah, extremely hard not to get him, even with the offensive line concerns, because the pass catching role is so good. You also remove Taysom Hill, the pesky goal line back that comes in situationally and can vulture Alvin Kamara. There's really no resistance to him getting every meaningful touch in this game, pass catching, red zone, nothing we're worried about other than them just getting completely buried by the Chiefs defensive line. But at that point, the volume's probably too good to ignore anyway. I think he's the #1 stud to target.
He has to be. Look, it's a Chiefs team that's very good against the run. But I'm not sure it really matters. We're seeing Alvin Kamara used more than, I mean, when's the last time we've seen Alvin Kamara used in this capacity, right? You're talking in games that are competitive. So throw week 1 and week 2 out the window. Weeks 3 and weeks 4, he played 86 and 84% of snaps. That's a monster number for Alvin Kamara. Like last season, he played 80% of snaps one time and it was 80 on the dot. So many other games, he was in the 50s, Matt. Jamal Williams was getting a considerable amount of snaps behind him. That is just not the case this year. Kubiak is getting him as much work as humanly possible. He is featured in all facets of the offense. And even if they can't get the run game going, I mean, what better way to try and avoid pressure than to have Alvin Kamara leak out and just get him the ball in the passing game? We've seen Derek Carr do that so many times in close competitive spots, like last week when he was targeted 9 times and had over 11 points in PPR formats just in the passing game alone.
100% agree. And all the alternatives for the offense are falling like flies. Taysom Hill is out of this game. Kendre Miller, a player they drafted to potentially spell Alvin Kamara, has not been able to get on the field. Jamal Williams is old, and now there's a new OC. You have Kubiak, who's not forcing a committee between Kamara and Jamal Williams, which makes a lot of sense if your goal is to win games. And to win games, you need your best players on the field as much as possible. Having Jamal Williams out there for 40, 50% of snaps mathematically doesn't add up if you're trying to reach the end of that equation. So yeah, I just don't see any holes really with him at this point with the current edition of the Saints. Plus, what are we expecting? Derek Carr to push the ball downfield in a game where they should be at a severe disadvantage in the trenches? There could be a lot of leaks out of the backfield options where you just see him catch the ball because it's a check down. They don't have the protection for it.
Yeah, it's tough to get away from. Really tough to get away from. What's his ownership at right now?
High, but I don't know if it matters.
I figured, yeah. 24% at captain, 47%. We still haven't positively leveraged at captain. That's crazy. Wild. When do you ever see a running back in our tools positively leverage the captain with that ownership?
Not often. And I guess that just speaks to the clearly defined role.
We have him in the top single game showdown plays tool, which, by the way, when you sign up for any of this, you get this included in the core package or the max package. 32.5% top play probability. So top overall play, top overall score, 32%. Mahomes at 20, that seems high. But I guess when you consider the other options, it makes sense.
I think it's Kamara clearly, and then you have to start debating Mahomes versus Kelsey, Mahomes versus the Saints receivers, and that's where it's tricky. There is at the end of the day, like once you start factoring in the value guys, Johnson, like Tipton, whoever it is, a Chiefs receiver, and you're taking that salary to go up and pay for someone, then you have to really decide who your preference is. And it's definitely tricky.
It's very tricky here. What is Tipton your favorite value on this team?
I don't know, man. I'm debating Tipton versus Johnson.
I think I'd still lean Juwan Johnson just because the matchup benefits him and he saw a significant uptick in routes last week. But maybe Tipton's viable. Played a season high 39% of snaps in week 4. He's not exciting by any stretch of the imagination, but 4 targets over the last couple of games. He's at least on the board. He's at least semi-viable.
Yeah, I agree. He's probably going to play like 50 to 60% of the snaps, depending on how the game flow goes for the Saints, because they're going to use those fullbacks and tight ends a lot as well if they can.
I mean, you got to use him over Cedric Wilson.
They've been doing that.
I'm saying, you and me, because they're both cheap. They're both in that 1K range. Tipton over Wilson is pretty clear to me.
Yeah, for sure. Wilson's barely playing. He's getting a handful of snaps in games, whereas Tipton's actually like in the mid 20s, 30s, somewhere in that range.
Would you go to Foster Moreau?
Only in the largest of fields, because they're using him to block so much, which makes sense given the woes they have in the offensive line. They're probably going to do that again until they get some of these guys back from injury. So the routes just don't seem to be there, and they're declining.
Yeah, I would say the same. Because Juwan Johnson isn't really much more expensive than him. What is he, $400 more? I would rather just go to Juwan Johnson at $2,200 over Foster Moreau at $1,800.
Yeah, and he's not a blocker. Like, he played wide receiver in college.
Yep.
There's almost no blocking on his profile. He's out there as your kind of de facto third wide receiver at the expense of Tipton and stuff.
But, and by the way, guys, I know it feels like we spent a lot more time on the Chiefs. That's because we did. It's necessary. It's a Chiefs team that's a lot more difficult to break down. I don't want to say that New Orleans is necessarily straightforward, but there's not a lot here. I mean, it's Kamara, it's Olave, and then it's Rashid Shaheed that you're looking at on deep opportunities. We already spent a lot of time on the tight end, so I won't, retrace our steps. But with Olave, first of all, are you getting any Jamal Williams? Because he's thoroughly underwhelming to me in a game like this. If Kamara's playing as many snaps as he has in close games and they've lost 2 straight, now they've got a Monday night spot against the Chiefs as 5.5-point dogs. I just can't imagine he's not going to get as much or more work than he's seen over the last couple of games.
In my unrestricted run of the Sims this morning, I ended up with 4%, but that's the situation where I might just X him out. You really need a Kamara injury, because what is the ceiling in comparison to the other guys in this price range? First of all, there's a lot of them you can play because we don't know exactly what the Chiefs are doing, and the Saints run a bunch of weird personnel groups, and they don't have Taysom Hill, which opens the door for some of those cheap tight ends. But Williams, on a slate like this, what is the upside if Kamara stays healthy versus one of these Chiefs receivers or Juwan Johnson? They could easily catch a touchdown or be more involved than we think. Williams is almost certainly not going to be more involved than we think outside of a Kamara injury.
Reading the chat here, this is lively for 11.
Oh yeah, they're debating, does Andy Reid make Mahomes or does Mahomes make Andy Reid? And to be fair, I do think the Chiefs are an excellent organization. They've clearly hit on a ton of draft picks, including Mahomes, Chris Jones, Rashee Rice. They've also missed a lot of draft picks too. And my point was that their backfield was negligent heading into the season. Not that the Chiefs are a bad organization. Clearly, they're not when you come off back-to-back Super Bowls.
Well, you're not flat out wrong about what you said. I mean, Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman were early 2nd-round picks. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, even as a good organization, you're going to make mistakes. It's the NFL draft and player management. Like, you're going to run into these things. But looking, even at the time, did we think like drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 1st round was a good idea?
Nobody
And
did.
to their credit, they have continued to take shots at receiver. So they eventually end up with Rashee Rice at the expense of Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Eventually they got there, but I mean, they definitely missed on some guys along the way. So I mean, you can't all just be sunshine and roses for the Chiefs every time you try to evaluate their organization. Otherwise, I mean, why are we doing this? It's just the low-hanging fruit saying they're amazing because they have Mahomes.
Yeah.
Aggressive Goose, I think, brings up the most valuable point. Mahomes covers all their mistakes. I don't think it's close. I think that's the perfect way to say it.
That's a pretty fair statement to make. And even so, he's forced to do it late in games. You know, I mean, I would argue that the defense covers the majority of their mistakes this year for the most part. But Mahomes does mask a lot of them for sure. He couldn't mask it last year though, when Marquez Valdes-Scantling was dropping touchdowns to win games, and Kadarius Toney was the best offensive player for the Lions in week 1. You know, you can't mask all of that. Anyway, I ran the Sims on factory settings as well right now, and I will rerun this later, obviously, throughout the day as we get updates. My highest owned captain by a mile is Alvin Kamara, followed by Travis Kelsey, and then 10% Patrick Mahomes. I do have 7% Kareem Hunt at captain, which I love, 5% Olave, and also some Saints and Chiefs defense at captain, which I think is entirely viable. We haven't talked much about defense, but I think that makes a lot of sense. My most exposed players in the flex: Mahomes, Kelsey, Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Saints, Derek Carr, Chiefs, and Olave, all of them north of 25%. Again, I have no issues there whatsoever. I like the Kareem Hunt exposure. I like the exposure to both of these defenses as well, as I think both offenses could struggle in this game, Matt. And if it ends up being a low scoring, affair, then the defenses and the kickers could be really, really valuable tonight.
I agree with you, especially on the defenses. That could be an avenue to avoid gambling on some of the Chiefs' dusty receivers, or just whatever personnel grouping the Saints used tonight, play the defenses. We mentioned all of the problems with the Saints' offensive line. That could be a situation where you're looking at sacks. And if quarterbacks are under pressure, that's what lead to turnover-worthy plays and strip sacks and potential interceptions. The Chiefs' defense is shockingly cheap to me. $4K for this in the flex. It's a really, really nice price tag on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Way too cheap. Have you noticed, maybe it's me, the past week or so, I've been getting less kickers, and I'm wondering, did DraftKings start pricing them higher? I feel like they did. I feel like the past few showdown sites, all these kickers have been 5K or higher.
This is my guess at the DraftKings pricing algorithm, but I think it takes into account not only performance, but previous week's ownership. There were a couple showdown slates there where the kickers were just monstrously owned.
Yep.
Which maybe speaks to the amount of people using simulations or optimizers. You're no longer getting people just dumb braining. They don't want the kicker because of upside. These kickers have been mega owned. And I think as a response, DraftKings pricing algorithm is probably just bringing them up a little bit because they're clicked into lineups so often.
I know for sure they do that because I've seen it for many years where you've got a guy who is massive chalk, ends up as a value play, ends up being awful. And then the next day, he's really, really, really expensive. His price has come up $2,000, even though he was terrible. So, yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, I couldn't believe some of the kicker ownership we had early in the season.
Envious said, I disagree, Lafayette. I think it turns to a shootout after the first quarter. Listen, man, it could. We saw what happened on Thursday in a short week between the Falcons and the Bucs. But all I'm saying, I have to make decisions based on what I know. And right now I know that the Saints offensive line is in big trouble. The Chiefs have an elite defense with an excellent pass rush. They can stop the run, but also on offense, they have just myriad injuries scattered across that offense. So it looks to be that way. I will say though, the Saints are missing a handful of linebackers as well, Matt. And that's the spot that might be their weakness today when you look at the injuries to that linebacking core.
Yeah, Pete Werner is not expected to play. They definitely have some problems back there.
Willie Gay is out.
Maybe we just see them try to run the ball on that unit.
You know what? They might, but we have a lot of Kareem Hunt anyway, so.
Yeah, and I guess just last thing on the Kareem Hunt thing, maybe the Chiefs are just like, we like our offensive line so much it doesn't matter who we put back there. Because they have a pretty good offensive line, and they've done a great job developing talent and drafting guys there. They stole Creed Humphrey, and they're like Kingsley Suamatia, who was a pick for them early this year, has the chance to develop now because they've hit on some of their other guys. So maybe I think it was negligent. I'm wrong all the time. Perhaps it was just we have such a good foundation. Doesn't matter if we spend resources on this position at all. Whoever we put back there is going to be successful, except our former first rounder, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He seems to be unable to.
Yeah, no matter who he's running behind. Let's talk Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and then build a lineup before we get out of here. And if you guys don't mind, you could be so kind. Are we over 100 thumbs up? Tap that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for getting us over 100. Oh, yeah, we're at 159. This may be a 200 type of day. Yeah. And hey, if you're not using the avatar yet on Stokastic, stokastic.com/HOF, baby. It's the easiest way for you guys to profit even more when you win. Even if you enter a 10-cent contest or the mini max and you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, just don't chop with more than 2. You're getting a free month of Stokastic Sims, which is $200 value to any sport you want. If you win a second time in a calendar year, again, contest doesn't matter, just 5,000 entries or more, get silver tier, another month of any single sports Sims package, $200 value, plus a free week of any additional sport. So say you want to try hockey or you want to try basketball and you already got football, boom. Now you got them both. And if you get the third one, gold tier, 3-time Hall of Famer in a calendar year, free month of Sims all access, $550 value, every tool for every sport, just for repping the avatar, finishing top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweeting those wins to us with the screenshot, maybe a nice message as well. That's the Stokastic HOF on Twitter or X. And then any 20K plus win, by the way, this beautiful Stokastic Hall of Fame engraved ring in a spinning display case. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Rock the avatar, man.
Perfect for your man cave.
Damn right. Throw it in the man cave right on the desk. Look at people and say, hey, you see that? You didn't do that. I did. And you couldn't do that. Make them feel like shit. You know, that's do you have one of those? No, I didn't think so. All right. Just your thoughts on Olave and Shaheed. I think it's relatively straightforward here based on pricing and other top receivers, which we don't have, but want to get your thoughts.
I think they're both excellent plays. I think the real question you should be asking yourself is, does the current target share persist? Or do we see this move towards Olave, who coming into the season, I think we were projecting as a target alpha, but Shaheed has been so good that we've actually seen him with one more target on the season than Olave. And that matters because there are systemic concerns with the offense. This is a very, very run-heavy team. You can see that in their 12 personnel usage, their fullback usage. And I mean, 25% target share is about for each of them, 25.5 and 24.5 for Shaheed and Olave respectively. That equates to just 25 and 24 targets. So this is not a voluminous passing attack. I tend to think it remains somewhat consistent between the two with how good Shaheed has been, which to me makes him a better value at cost, just with Olave being more expensive. But it's a tricky situation. And the other question is, do they get coaxed into a pass-heavy game script because they're trailing, which very much could be the case as well, where then you'd see them both rise in targets. But clearly they don't want to run, or they don't want to pass if they don't have to.
I like Olave better than Shaheed, but Shaheed's a game-breaking type of option today, or a 2 for 15.
We've seen both outcomes this year.
I mean, he had an 0 for game early in the year.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Justin asked, what Saints wide receiver is getting the most snaps from the slot? I assume you're talking about those injuries. It's just spread around all over the place. 39% Wilson. Tipton's playing 38% in the slot. Hill on his routes, 36. Juwan Johnson, 30. Rashid Shaheed, 26. Olave, 25. They don't really have a traditional slot guy.
They use so many different formations too.
Yeah.
So many different personnel groupings. Like Saints are a weird team in this regard. They have Taysom Hill on their team.
I know.
He's out today, but he's on their team that allows you to do weird stuff.
Should we build a lineup before we go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Josh Engelman on yesterday's international game showdown slate was declaring himself the czar of the single lineup sim, Matt. So you and I building these by hand on mornings have not had as much luck. Let's see what we can do. We will build one because we're already running a bit late and you have an important phone call to get to. Let's build one out.
All right. What are the settings you put in for contest?
I'm going to go large field 10% to first.
Okay. We probably got to do Kamara captain then.
I want to try Kareem Hunt.
Okay. I'm definitely down with that. He's my second favorite, I think.
Yeah, let's just try it. Let's try Kareem Hunt.
So then Kamara first guy in flex?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Love it.
Okay, now, do we want Mahomes in this spot? Do we want... There's a lot of different directions we could go here.
I think we go Kelsey.
Yeah, you know what? We probably should.
He's just the safest pass catching option probably on the entire slate.
As underwhelming as he's been this year with no Rashee Rice, he's still underpriced. Kelsey.
Yeah, he's cheaper than all of the stud receivers, and he's only 600 more than Shaheed.
All right, 3 flex spots. Should we try like a Mahomes, Noah Gray?
Yeah.
It's not crazy, right?
No, it's going to be fine.
Like those can be our 2 pass catchers?
For sure.
All right, so we could go Blake Groupie here. You could go Chiefs, Saints. I kind of like all of this. I have no problem.
I think I might just go.
Go ahead.
Chiefs D. We already have kind of like an onslaught.
Let's try it.
We have both tight ends, which is weird.
But I don't hate it.
Me either. They play a ton of 12, like almost 50% of the time.
I think this is going to be good. Yeah. Oh, we did. All right. There we go. 117.5, Matt.
We're back.
We're back, baby. Other variations, obviously. You can go kicker there. Saints D, but not in that specific lineup. We're back. Kamara cat. I just wanted to see what it looked like with Kareem Hunt up top. The last thing I want to see before we go, I have 18% exposure to Noah Gray at captain. And yeah. Or I'm sorry, flex, not captain. And I probably have none at captain. No, I have none at captain. Do I have any Juwan Johnson at flex? Only 7%. So that guy I'm actually pretty low. I might give him a little manual boost there because I don't know if everything's being factored into what we saw from him last week. And not production, but seeing more routes, seeing more snaps.
Yeah, I agree with you. No problem with that.
You're right, Obi-Wan. Who's the czar now? Anyway.
Sorry, Josh.
Hey, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski, _D. And Pick Six, sponsor of the show. If you guys were unaware, all of our tools, the Pick Six Optimizer, are included with every package you could consider. You're already on DraftKings, so the 100% deposit match won't do much. But as far as our tools go, they're going to get you the best lineups you're playing on Pick Six, hands down. And you should check it out if you haven't done so yet. Our boy Eric Lindquist out there in California been making a lot of money on that. Anyway, Bug Boy, do it, Laffy. No balls. You won't run out 18% Gray captain tonight. Yeah, no, I won't. No balls. You're right, brother. But yeah, thanks for the support, guys. We'll see you back here, Matt and myself tonight. You better get a 4 Loco, man.
Okay.
Come on, just do it.
I may have to do that.
You may. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you back here 7:15 tonight for Live Before Lock. Peace.